Welcome back to the channel. Every year we hatch out our own chickens. We collect the eggs. We always keep a rooster in our flock, and we collect the eggs every year. And every year we usually do at least one batch of hatchlings. We incubate the eggs, and then we usually get between 12 and 20 chickens that will hatch. This year we had 18 babies that hatched. So let me show you some of the babies here and what we have for their setup, and then we'll talk about one of the big problems that this kind of sustainable hatching cycle causes for us and how we deal with it here. We have this smaller little chicken coop that we keep all the babies in. So they're a mixture of several different breeds. We have a lot of the Australopes in here and just a few Brahmas, and I hope that a couple of them will have the olive egg layer trait. We have a couple of those in there too. So we just have a little setup here with water and food, and they don't have their heat lamp anymore. So you can't really tell yet. There's a couple in here that are starting to look like roosters. This guy right here, he's probably a rooster. I can see the comb comes out usually early on them. And then there's another one or two in here at least that I can see will probably be roosters. About this time you can start to tell they will generally be the tallest, most bold, and they start to develop a little bit faster, and they start to have a larger comb on their head. So, you know, statistically, half of your hatchlings should be male and half female. Now we've ended up with more males sometimes or more females sometimes, more hens or more roosters. This guy right here is a rooster, I almost guarantee it. You see him, he'll be the first one to kind of come out and check things out. These guys haven't been handled very much, so they're freaking out. So what that means is if we hatch out, let's say we have 18, you know, every year we have 18 that we hatch out. Well, that means that we're probably going to have nine roosters every year that we're adding to our flock. That's a lot of roosters, and I'll tell you what happens when you have too many roosters. I'll show you what's happening in our flock because we have too many, and what we do about it. So you'll see several different kinds of chickens in here. This is one of the olive egg layers. We've got some Australopes and we've got some Brahmas in here. Brahmas are my favorite. And then there's a bunch over here. And right now we've got about half roosters and half hens, which is a really bad ratio. And what you end up having is you'll see a lot of these hens, they are the roosters are mating with them too much. And this is what happens when there's too many roosters. So some of the chickens will get away. These guys right here, these hens, they're pretty healthy. They're probably pretty fast, and they've been able to get away from the roosters more often. But some of the other hens, and honestly, usually the more tame ones, the more friendly hens, you'll see their backs the feathers are being worn off their back. Their roosters are doing that to them. It's not they're not being mean or anything. It's just how they were made. Now this year we had a unique circumstance. We've had some raccoons that I have been battling out here, and they have actually gotten a few of the hens. Generally, the roosters are not going to get picked off by the raccoons or even the foxes. It's usually the hens that go first. The roosters are, you know, they're bigger. They fight back. They can get away from those predators a lot better. But the hens don't. And so we have lost a few hens this year, which has diminished our ratio of roosters to hens. That's caused a problem. Ideally, if you are raising your own homestead flock, you want to have one rooster for about every 9 hens, every 6 to 10, you could say. That's a good ratio. You're going to have good fertilization for your eggs if you're trying to hatch them every year, and they're going to be just a good healthy flock. The rooster will protect the hens. He can kind of keep his eye on all of them. They'll all kind of stick together. When you get more than that, more roosters, the roosters tend to divide out your flock, and they'll end up taking a few hens, and they'll kind of all separate off into their own little kingdoms. Number 1. There's a couple ways that I have learned to catch chickens And there's a technique to it. Now, it's hard in this pasture because we have a couple obstacles that make it just really difficult to catch them. So I've only caught 2, and one of them was actually one of the ones I want to keep. So I'll let him go. So I've got 1 caged. So I'll show you the technique I was using that works fairly well, but requires a little bit more work. And then we'll go on to the next technique that has a higher success rate with less trouble. So I've riled them all up enough. They're all hiding in their safe zone under the sticks there. I still have 5 more roosters to grab. And the problem with this pasture is these roosters, they can fly right over the fence, number one, and then they get out and get, lost somewhere. The other thing is this tree has fallen down, and it leads right out over the fence. So as I'm chasing around in here, a bunch of them will get up there and they'll lead the whole entire flock up on this log, and then they jump out. So I'm gonna stop chasing them around. But the technique that I use generally is I'll hold a stick that's long enough to kind of coax them. So they'll see this over here and they'll start to run the opposite direction. And if you can get them into a corner like this, they'll try to run right through the fence there, and they'll get their head in the fence, or you can kind of trap them right in the corner. And that's just the best way. That's really the only way to catch these chickens out in the pasture. I was trying to catch them earlier in the day because the processor likes 15 hours with no feed. So what I've done is something different. I just plugged up all their feeders with socks for right now, and I've closed the door. So what'll happen is it starts to get dark, all these chickens are gonna roost up here on this little ledge. And then when it's dark out, I'll just come out here and just pick the ones I want out. They can't even see me, and we'll just take them and put them in the crate. That way they won't have food. They might be able to pick something off the ground for your ranging, but they shouldn't really be eating too much in the next couple hours before it gets dark. So we'll come back and get them in a little bit. Well, now this should be easier. Let's see if they'll let me get them. All right, now we can turn the light on. Definitely easier to get them at dark, but I just want to make sure I don't have any more roosters in here. So that should leave me with just this one. He wasn't the heaviest, but he seemed to be the biggest, the tallest. So I'm looking for the genes that are going to give me the biggest chickens. So I think he's the one. And then I've got this guy here. You can see the brown in his feathers. That's because he's got an Isa brown mixed in with a Brahma. So I got the big chicken, the big meat bird chicken, along with a good egg-laying gene, hopefully, in there. You guys can go to bed. And then we've got these Australopes, which those are good-sized chickens too. The Australopes are, but I really prefer these Brahmas. They're a lot better. After a real easy trip to the processor that we go to is it's a little bit of a drive. It's about 35 minutes away from home. Drop off the roosters in the morning, and then in the afternoon pick them up and pay. I think it was $55 for the 7 birds that we got processed. And so now our flock is much happier, and we've got a little extra meat in the freezer, which I'll show you here in a minute. What do you get from these roosters? How much is the processed weight? What does it look like? And I'll show you that. But let me show you the flock. It's a much happier flock, a calmer flock. So we have moved out our younger birds, and we still have 2 roosters. So we've got the cross there, the Isa and the Brahma cross, which is right here. And then we have just the Brahma. And these, we've got some littler ones in here that have just been added to the flock, and there's a bunch of other ones. They haven't fully integrated yet. A lot of them still stay kind of separated, but they'll get used to it. They'll get it all figured out. So it's a much more peaceful flock. The 2 roosters will kind of separate out, and there's probably going to be a few more roosters in here. I can see this one's probably a rooster that's coming up here. That one over there might be as well. There'll be a few more roosters in the ones that we hatched out this year, but those will be next year's. Next spring, we'll take those out and we'll get those ones processed. We never want to have more than maybe 2 or 3 roosters for 20 or 30 birds. If you're gonna raise chickens in a homestead and you want to be efficient, you want to try to, the goal is to have eggs and to have a couple roosters. They have a purpose. They protect the flock, and they also obviously help you hatch out new birds in the spring. You have to have a few roosters for that. But we don't want to have too many roosters, because then you're just feeding birds for no reason. And as soon as they're of age and they're big enough, we want to use those for a purpose for the homestead, which is food. And so let me show you what we've got from the processor and the 7 roosters that we took in. We took in quite a few of our own birds, but we also stopped by. The neighbor wanted to get rid of one of their roosters, and a friend of ours wanted to get rid of their roosters. So I made a little detours on the way in the morning. Took those all to the processor. So we ended up with 7 total that we got processed, and they are in the freezer. So this is what you end up with. Obviously some of them are bigger than others. These are all, I get them cut, so I pay a little bit of extra money to get everything cut up. So these aren't whole chickens. They're cut into thighs and legs together, and then the breasts are separate. So you kind of have them all packaged in these shrink wrapped packages. So there's 8 pieces in here. So this is 4.12. This one's a little smaller. This was a 3 pound bird. This one's almost 4. Like the biggest one we had here might be bigger. Yep, this is the biggest one, 4.58. So there's some good size. This is a decent size chicken here. These ones are a little small, not really worth it as far as the dollars per weight here, but these are still good. Obviously these are gonna, instead of feeding a rooster for no reason, they're gonna go to good use here. This is gonna feed our families, and we can just take one of these, run it under some warm water, get the plastic packaging off, throw it in a crock pot, and it'll cook for the day. Of course you can thaw it out, fry it, you can use it however you want to. Most of the time the question is, well, I want to get rid of these roosters that I have, but is the meat going to be any good? Is it good? Well, yeah, it's fine. Is it the same as the the grain-fed Franken chickens that you're buying at the grocery store that are raised out in 8 weeks and pumped full of grain, and they got the fattest breasts and legs and wings and all that stuff? Is it gonna? No, it's not going to taste like that. These are much healthier, leaner chickens. And it's going to be a little bit tougher meat, but it's going to be a lot healthier. So it's not going to be the nutritionless chicken that you're eating from the grocery store. It's going to be a lot healthier. And this is honestly how the majority of the world eats chickens. I recently spent some time in Kenya earlier this year and the year before that, and they've got chickens running all over the place. They don't feed them anything but scraps, and they pick up bugs and they kind of fend for themselves. They're scrawny little chickens, and that's what they eat. Like they don't eat the chickens like we have. If you're looking at homesteading, if you're looking at being sustainable, you're not going to raise those kinds of chickens. If you want to feed chickens a bunch of grain and raise them out in 8 weeks, then you're just, it might be cheaper than buying it at the store, but it's not healthier. It's the same. In my opinion, this is healthier. They're still getting, we don't feed them all organic food or anything like that. They're still getting feed store grain feed, but they are foraging a lot out here on this pasture. They're eating a lot of bugs, they're eating a lot of forage. We have a lot of scraps that they eat and other things, so it's a healthier bird anyway. That's how we take care of our roosters. That's how we kind of harvest some from the flock every year. We create a healthier flock, a healthier set of hens. We keep the roosters we want. We keep the genes that we want in those roosters so that we can breed those chickens out every year. And so it's a sustainable way that we have developed here to just continue to raise our chickens out year over year. Let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of people do it different ways. Let me know what you do at your homestead or your farm if you have a larger chicken operation. We get eggs, we get some meat every year off these guys, and our older hens also will go too. We don't keep hens around. We don't have a retirement home for chickens. We always want to keep. They have to have a purpose, or they don't stay. Thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe if it's your first time here. Love to have you tag along. And questions, comments, all that stuff. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know. We'll see you next time.